Now Saul spoke to Jonathan his son, and to all his servants, that they should kill David. But Jonathan, Saul's son, delighted greatly in David. So Jonathan told David, saying, My father seeks to kill you. Therefore please be on your guard until morning, and stay in a secret place and hide. And I'll go out and stand beside my father in the field where you are, and I will speak with my father about you. Then what I observe I will tell you. Thus Jonathan spoke well of David to Saul his father, and said to him, Let not the king sin against his servant, against David, because he has not sinned against you, and because his works have been very good toward you. For he took his life in his hands and killed the Philistine, and the Lord brought about a great deliverance for all Israel. You saw it and rejoiced. Why then will you sin against innocent blood, to kill David without a cause? So Saul heeded the voice of Jonathan, and Saul swore, As the Lord lives, he shall not be killed. Then Jonathan called David, and Jonathan told him all these things. So Jonathan brought David to Saul, and he was in his presence, as in times past. And there was war again, and David went out and fought with the Philistines, and struck them with a mighty blow, and they fled from him. Now the distressing spirit from the Lord came upon Saul as he sat in his house with his spear in his hand, and David was playing music with his hand. Then Saul sought to pin David to the wall with the spear, but he slipped away from Saul's presence, and drove the spear into the wall. So David fled and escaped that night. Saul also sent messengers to David's house to watch him, and to kill him in the morning. And Michal, David's wife, told him, saying, If you do not save your life tonight, tomorrow you will be killed. So Michal let David down through a window, and he went and fled and escaped. And Michal took an image and laid it in the bed, put a cover of goat's hair over his head, and covered it with clothes. And when Saul sent messengers to take David, she said, He is sick. Then Saul sent messengers back to see David, saying, Bring him to me in the bed, that I may kill him. And when the messengers had come in, there was the image in the bed, with a cover of goat's hair for its head. Then Saul said to Michal, Why have you deceived me like this, and sent my enemy away, so that he has escaped? And Michal answered Saul, He said to me, Let me go. Why should I kill you? So David fled and escaped, and went to Samuel at Ramah, and told him all that Saul had done to him. And he and Samuel went and stayed at Naioth. Now it was told Saul, saying, Take note, David is in Naioth in Ramah. Then Saul sent messengers to take David, and when they saw the group of prophets prophesying, and Samuel standing as leader over them, the Spirit of God came upon the messengers of Saul, and they also prophesied. And when Saul was told, he sent other messengers, and they prophesied likewise. Then Saul sent messengers again the third time, and they prophesied also. Then he also went to Ramah, and came to the great well that is at Seku. So he asked and said, Where are Samuel and David? And someone said, Indeed they are at Naioth in Ramah. So he went there to Naioth in Ramah. Then the Spirit of God was upon him also, and he went on and prophesied until he came to Naioth. He also stripped off his clothes and prophesied before Samuel in like manner. And they lay down naked all that day and all that night. Therefore they say, Is Saul also among the prophets? My name's Arthur, and I thank you for joining me as we've read together from 1 Samuel chapter 19. A most amazing story. We have Saul jealous of the popularity of David. This is not a rational thing, it's completely irrational. And the explanation that the scripture gives that there was a distressing spirit sent from the Lord. In other words, it was a demonic lie that the Lord had permitted a demon to give to Saul, because that's what Saul wanted to hear. In other places of Scripture we do have access into the throne room, and we see that the Lord does permit these things, but he always has a greater purpose in mind. His purpose this time is to demonstrate to everybody that he saves the righteous, and he will save and appoint David despite the determined attempts that Saul will make against him. Well, Saul's envy and enmity towards David is completely unjustified. David, from his part, is working towards reconciliation. He is working hard for Saul as a captain of his army. Saul has given his daughter Michal to David as wife. His purpose was to cause David to die, but the Lord always worked for good to those who love God, who are the called according to his purpose. And so every attempt that Saul makes against David turns out for the honouring of David. Saul plans to kill David. He tells Jonathan, he tells his servants, but Jonathan loves David greatly and warns David, watch out, don't get caught. And Jonathan goes to speak on behalf of David to his father and brings about a reconciliation. Saul, in his lucid moments, will acknowledge that David is righteous time and time again, and yet he cannot get over the fact that he wants to kill him. So David must treat Saul with respect, but always be wary. And this is, of course, the approach that we should always take when there is a conflict. Seek some kind of reconciliation. Even if we suspect that the person we're dealing with is like Saul, it might be, and it probably will be, a temporary reconciliation. But the person who pursues righteousness will make sure that there is no fault on their side. We do not render evil for evil, but we render good in place of evil, that we might overcome evil with good. And that is what is happening here in the conflict between Saul and David. The enmity is all on Saul's part. The good is all on David's part. And so David and Saul are reconciled by Jonathan, and he continues to serve. He serves as a captain in the army, and he serves as a musician. But in his role as a captain of the army, he defeats the Philistines yet again. They flee from him, whereas Saul himself was repeatedly intimidated by the Philistines. David continually has success. Whenever they rise up, they do not succeed. And seeing this reminder of his own failure, the distressing spirit of the Lord, the depression, comes upon Saul again. And with his spear in his hand, while David plays, he seeks to strike him. But David escapes again. Saul sends guards to David's house, but Michal warns him, if you don't escape tonight, you will be killed. David escapes out the window. Everyone's against Saul, even his son and daughter. Michal stuffs the bed with an image and says he's sick, but he's not sick, he's gone. He sends the soldiers in, and they find the deception. And Saul tries to blame Michal, but she justifies herself, saying, he said to me, why should I kill you? So he escaped. Where would he go? He went to Samuel, where Samuel was leading the servants of God. So Samuel could encourage him in the Lord, and they were worshipping before the Lord. But Saul chases after him, sending first of all messengers to bring David back. But the Spirit of God overwhelms them. God shows plainly to anybody who draws near to attack his servants that he is sovereign. And even when Saul himself comes, he is overcome by the spirituality that is surrounding Samuel. This is something that we probably do not understand, because it's unlikely we will experience this kind of thing. Saul had experienced the Spirit of God upon him as a young man. It's so incongruous for him to be worshipping the Lord that the question is raised, Is Saul also one of the prophets?